My enigmatic roommate. Growing up, I had always been a shy guy. I was the one who would rather bury his nose in a book than play sports. I was always the one who relished doing science experiments. Non-ironically, I was nerdy but friendly when approached. I never made the first move, though. So, that fateful night, my own actions took me aback. I was on the ground floor, waiting for the elevator, when my new roommate, Ryan Phillips, approached. I saw him from my peripheral vision and, try as I might to ignore his presence, the apartment complex's lobby was much too cramped for me to actually avoid him. I don't know what possessed me, but I waved awkwardly and, in turn, Ryan muttered a breathy, "Hey." It wasn't so much muttered as it was grunted. I was used to it, though. Ever since he moved in a little over a week ago, Ryan had been distant. I had my fair share of roommates, but he was by far the coldest and least easy to get along with. Probably because he didn't talk so much. Not to mention, his appearance was somewhat intimidating as well. He was brawny and quite heavily tattooed, making him unapproachable. This night, however, I suppose he felt a lot less grumpy than usual because he actually bothered to make small talk on the way to the apartment. "So, you work at the pharmaceutical company down the street?" he asked as I fumbled through my bag for the keys. I simply nodded, attempting to focus on the task at hand. It seemed like my hands wouldn't cooperate with me, as they decided that now would be the time to get all sweaty and clumsy. I finally got the keys after a while, during which Ryan had already stopped talking and was staring right at me, which made me even more nervous. To say that I struggled with the keys would be an understatement. On usual days I was already relatively flimsy, but today was a particularly rough day, so I was even more careless than usual. And I guess he wasn't having it. "Is this your usual level of lameness?" he asked mockingly. "I mean, just warn me, will you? I don't typically have this much patience." I lost it. I usually didn't mind snarky remarks like that. And boy, did Ryan make a lot of side comments that were borderline rude. But I wasn't having it today either. "Do you mind? Maybe instead of running your mouth, you can actually help." How typical. Standing around there while I'm left fumbling. Just like how you've been doing with house chores. I must have hit a nerve because Ryan didn't retort after that. I took my time with the keys this time around, not wanting to fumble once more. He looked away while I finally unlocked the door, possibly to keep himself from voicing out any more rude comments. To my surprise, he uttered another word as we entered the apartment. "I'm sorry," he said softly, as though he was embarrassed about his earlier behavior. I know it's typical of me to make side comments, but I don't usually attack people like that. I just had a rough day. And that's a bad excuse. I'm aware, but forgive me, Oliver. That was probably the first time I ever heard him address me by my first name. "It's all good. You need any help?" He looked at me, astounded, before he cracked a smile. "I was a total jackass to you. And you're still extending me help?" he said. "Unbelieving. You're too kind, and I don't deserve you. But I'm all good, Oliver. Thanks. I just got dumped by my girlfriend. No biggie." I smiled sympathetically as I patted him gently on the back. I don't know what propelled me to touch him, but it felt right at that moment. He tensed up at first but relaxed shortly after and flashed me a grin. "I don't know if this will comfort you, but I also just got dumped. So we're kind of in the same boat here." I admitted. "No way," Ryan exclaimed. "They're really stupid if they dumped you. Anyone would be lucky to have you." I was probably blushing profusely, but I tried to hide my giddiness as I heard these words from Ryan. "Stop it. You're just making up for the mean things you said earlier on." We laughed and continued our conversation in the living room. Coincidentally, both of us brought home some takeout, so we had a nice, heartfelt exchange over some dinner. He told me that his girlfriend of almost 5 months, Kelly, suddenly dumped him today, although she wasn't the kindest person to Ryan. He said that she endured his mood swings and closed-off personality, and for that, he would miss her dearly. On the other hand, I told him about my now ex-boyfriend, Carter James, who is my dearest friend. Above all, Carter is openly bi, so this was a long time coming. I confessed to Ryan, he's been seeking a more conventional relationship with a woman, and I suppose I'll let him be happy. "I'm sorry to hear that, Oliver. Don't ever think for a moment that you're not enough." He comforted me. "I'm sure he is beyond grateful to love and be loved by you. It's just that he wants to be more himself." I flashed him a Cheshire grin. "You're really sweet when you want to be. Do you know that? I questioned him, shocked. He blushed at my words and looked down at his food. I found this habit of his cute. He seemed to have a scary demeanor. And he came off rude at times. But he really wasn't. He was just an extremely quiet guy and misunderstood. Coupled with his daunting tattoos, I wasn't surprised that he was often judged. Given that I myself judged him too soon. 2. Before I could forget, I asked him a question that had been lurking at the back of my mind since I moved in. Wait, since I told you about Carter, you now know I'm gay. And that's not a problem with you? I inquired. Ryan shook his head vigorously. I was surprised, but it will never be a problem with me. You can be who you want to be. I'm in no position to make any judgment or comments about that. With that, we spent the entire night just talking about our lives. Ryan asked quite a few questions about my lifestyle, and I was beyond happy to be myself around him, no longer feeling afraid that I would be discriminated against because I was gay. I learned that besides his regular job as an engineer, he also sang, which surprised me immensely. I told him about my job as a chemist and my passion for painting, baking, and sewing. Despite our contrasting backgrounds and interests, I was surprised by how easily we bonded. From that night onwards, we were inseparable. Although we went our separate ways in the morning, we found comfort and solace in one another at night. We had the best talks during dinner time, and it amazed me how varied our topics of conversation were. We could talk about anything, from our latest manga read to deeper and more sensitive topics, such as our families. We made dinner a ritual and alternated providing food. On days that it was my turn to provide dinner, I would make a nice home-cooked meal. Ryan always commended how good my cooking smelled and how it tasted even better. One night, he took me aback when he crept up on me as I was making dinner. He wrapped his tattooed arms around my tiny waist and shouted, "Boo," to which I jumped. And my heart stopped momentarily. "Don't do that," I warned. "It smells so good." I heard him groan, and I could have sworn he wasn't only referring to the dish that I was cooking because he was also sniffing me. We made this our new routine, cooking dinner together, or ordering it on nights that we felt exhausted, eating our meal over a nice dialogue, watching television together or reading, and more recently, cuddling up with one another. I found myself swiftly relishing Ryan's company and would find comfort in his arms. "Don't be nervous. Scoot closer," he whispered with a little hesitation. I would cuddle up next to him and soon would be wrapped in his muscular and tattooed arm. I would then snuggle up against his neck, taking in his manly scent. Sometimes, he would even stroke my hair until I fell asleep. This happened a few days ago, and he had to gently wake me up by stroking my arm, as he desperately needed to go to the toilet. "Hate to wake you up. Oh, but I've been holding this in for like an hour." He laughed. I blushed furiously and made room for him to get up and pee. But as soon as he came back, he offered his arms again, and I snuggled back towards him. Not only was he providing me with physical comfort, but we also became each other's support system through our post-breakup struggles. A few weeks later, we were talking about how we were coping with being single, and he opened up to me. So I did to him, too. "I'm okay now. I would say I'm content. And I cannot be happier that after my breakup with Kelly, I found friendship in you," Ryan admitted. I smiled at the thought and covered his hand with mine. I gave it a tight squeeze while smiling at him. "Same for me," I replied. "Carter and I are friends again. Anyway, he's a wonderful friend after all. Just not meant to be as a boyfriend, I guess." I could have sworn that a wave of jealousy flashed through his face. But Ryan, being Ryan, swiftly recovered and put up an emotionless face as usual. On days that were rougher, I was there to hold Ryan's hand. He didn't look like it, and I know he said he was okay. But I knew better. It was evident that he had flashbacks of his relationship with Kelly every now and then. And it showed. His eyes would be bloodshot red, and he would look even paler than usual, making his tattoos stand out even more. But I was there for him through those rough nights. I would lend him my shoulder, literally and figuratively. He would lean against me as he let out those bottled-up feelings. I would make soup for him when he felt too sick to consume anything else. "What did I ever do to deserve someone like you?" Ryan said one night after I gave him advice. He took my hand in his strong ones, and I was certain I turned beet red instantaneously. "If only Kelly treated me this way. You deserve the best, Ryan, nothing less." With that, I looked up and met his gaze. Surprisingly, His face was extremely adjacent to mine. He was so close that I could feel the warmth of his breath across my face. Without hesitation, I leaned in and did what I had been holding back for the past couple of weeks, gently. I kissed him, and he was hesitant at first. But he kissed me back. It was nothing short of magical. And his lips were just as I had imagined, soft, supple, and heavenly. We both pulled back after. And I thought this was the start of a budding romance. But I couldn't be more wrong. If anything, that kiss made us distant. And it seemed like it did quite the opposite of what I had hoped. A few days after that fateful night, we broke our routine, and it seemed like we were back to the days when we were merely strangers. And I thought of Ryan as a mean, intimidating roommate. I was melancholic, and since my ex-boyfriend, Carter, and I worked in the same laboratory, he must have noticed this and invited me for coffee one afternoon. "I've never seen you this upset, Oliver," he commented as he stirred some creamer into my coffee and handed me a pastry. "Look, we may have broken up, but you're still my dear friend. So spill the beans, honey." I sighed and told him about the development in my dynamic with Ryan and how it came crashing down once more after the night we kissed. From what I know, he's straight, so maybe he's in denial about these feelings that are surfacing. I told Carter. Carter nodded in affirmation. "Possibly. So he has been ignoring you?" he asked. I also nodded. "Look, he even started hanging out with his ex-girlfriend again. I think they're back together," I stated, dejected. I then showed him Ryan's latest Instagram story, which shattered my heart. It was him and Kelly cuddled up. Just a few days ago. It was as who were in each other's arms. And now he was back in the arms of that very woman who broke his heart. Why did he so easily run back to her? Was I really that disposable? Were all of our dinner conversations, cuddle nights, and bonding moments not enough? "No way," Carter exclaimed. "That's his girlfriend?" "Yup. And it seemed like they're back together," I commented as I clicked next on Ryan's Instagram stories and saw that he had reposted Kelly's story. It read, "Home is where the heart is. We back." A wave of hurt ran through me. And it had been a while since I felt this much frustration and betrayal. Although Ryan and I weren't officially together, I lived for the hope that one day we would be. So it sucked to see him with another person. Much less the very girl who dumped him just a month ago. "Look, Oliver, I told you a week ago that I'm seeing someone, right?" inquired Carter. I nodded. "Well, believe it or not, that skank is that very girl that I was seeing. And you know what? We're still together to this date," Carter revealed. I was flabbergasted, and I was positive that my mouth was wide open at the unexpected turn of events. "No way. So she's playing the both of you?" I stuttered. Carter nodded in affirmation. "Honestly, she's a nice girl, and I've been having fun exploring my sexuality with her. But man, this is sick. She's toying with me and your roommate. Unbelievable," he huffed, evidently frustrated. "I must tell Ryan at once," I affirmed. Carter agreed and said he would wait for my update before he dumped that evil Kelly. Later that night, I stayed up until well past midnight to wait for Ryan. By the time he got home, it was 1:30, and I had already fallen asleep on the couch multiple times. I greeted him, only to get a grunt in return. We were truly back in our rude, unfeeling roommate and shy, awkward gay roommate era. "Ryan, wait, there's something you need to know about Kelly." He was about to enter his room at this point but stopped dead in his tracks when he heard her name. "What about her? Leave her out of this," he snapped. "Look, she's playing you. You know my ex, Carter? He's been seeing her since before you two got back together. And although you seem to be spending every waking hour back with her, she's also still seeing Carter. Can't you see? She's playing the both of you," I blurted out. With this, Ryan closed his eyes. "Look, Oliver, you're a good person and a kind friend. I've enjoyed the past few weeks with you. But that kiss, it never should have happened. Surely, I may have caught feelings for you. I mean, how could I not? You're a complete package, but I'm just not ready to be in a relationship with another guy," he said softly. "But she's cheating on you. I'm protecting you," I cried. Ryan put up a hand to stop me. "You're protecting yourself. You can't accept the fact that I chose her over you. And now you're fabricating stories so I can come crawling back to you. I've made peace with my decision, Oliver, and I hope you can too." He then slammed the door of his room, leaving me crestfallen. But one thing about me was I never gave up on the people I loved, even when they seemed to have given up on me. The next day, I told Carter the turn of events from last night. He was unbelieving, but he agreed with me that perhaps Ryan was still in a state of denial. But we weren't going to let Kelly off that easily. Carter had told me stories of how manipulative she could be, so I wasn't surprised that she seemed to have Ryan on a leash. "We need to get your roommate to see me and Kelly together firsthand," Carter uttered. "We're going out to dinner in town tonight. Could you get Ryan there?" It was a challenge, but I left my shift early, knowing that Ryan would likely be heading home at around 5 p.m. If he wasn't hanging out with Kelly tonight, he would be clocking out at work then, as he always did, and so I waited just outside the firm that he was working at. He seemed surprised to see me but approached me with caution. "Oliver." "Hey," he greeted, much calmer than he was last night. I'm sorry, we said at the same time. We laughed at the blunder and smiled. I took this as my chance to ask him out on a dinner. And he agreed, just like the old times. We held a conversation effortlessly. And I couldn't be happier that our bond didn't disappear despite the rocky past few days. Just as planned, we walked past Mama Lou's, an Italian restaurant where Carter and Kelly would be dining al fresco. As planned, just as we were approaching, Kelly leaned in to plant a kiss on Carter's lips, and he reciprocated them tongue-tied. He approached the table, fists clenched. "Oh, look, it's my girlfriend with another man," shouted Ryan, drawing curious stares from onlookers. What is happening here? I don't know this man." "Baby." Kelly tried to defend herself and pushed Carter off her at once. Some whispers were building up around us, clearly aghast by Kelly's dumb behavior. "I should have listened to Oliver when he warned me about you. I was much too blinded by your manipulation and constant guilt-tripping. Meanwhile, you're out here making a fool out of not just me, but also this guy who was also left in the dark." Ryan raised. Kelly stood up from her seat, clinging on to Ryan for dear life. She was begging him to listen to her contradicting explanation, but Ryan turned a blind ear. "Get away from me and never contact me ever again," Ryan said sternly. Kelly started bawling, begging either man to take her back and apologizing profusely. But Carter wasn't having it either. And just as Ryan had done, he shook Kelly off him. "Get away from me and all of my friends. You've done enough damage, you sick woman," Carter berated her. With that, the three of us left her. She was on the ground now, a weeping mess and utterly ashamed by the large crowd who was witnessing her downfall. I then suggested that the three of us went down in a nearby coffee shop where Carter and Ryan got properly acquainted. "I'm so sorry, Oliver, for not believing in you at first," Ryan apologized. "I should have known better. I was running away from my feelings from you, and that meant I was deceiving myself into thinking I still love Kelly. But I don't, not anymore. Not from the moment you and I clicked. It's been you, and I was too much of a coward to confront my feelings. But I'm done running away now. It's okay," I said softly, taking his hand in mine and feeling the warmth of his large hands again after weeks. "I always knew you'd find your way back home. Are you guys sure that you're not married yet? You act like it," Carter commented, gushing at the sight of me and Ryan. "Well, we're not married yet, since I don't even know if I truly deserve Oliver. Anyway, if we were going to get married, you'd be the best man," replied Ryan. "Oh, honey, you better act on your feelings for Oliver and make him feel like the king he deserved to be treated as. Or I'm coming for him. I'm warning you," Carter bantered. "Carter," I laughed, although I knew Carter was joking. Ryan seemed to be taking him seriously, afraid that I was going to slip out of his fingers once more. He leaned in towards me and planted the most gentle and passionate kiss I have ever had. "No one else is stealing you from me," he whispered after the kiss. And that was how I got together with my enigmatic roommate. Summary: Oliver was always the shy boy next door type. When he gets a new roommate in the heavily tattooed and intimidating Ryan Phillips. They didn't click right away because of obvious differences. But one night when Oliver finally snapped at Ryan's snarky remarks, they unorthodoxly started a friendship. They confided in each other through their individual breakups and even took comfort from each other physically. One night after they kissed, Ryan started distancing himself from Oliver, afraid of the feelings and uncertain about entering in a relationship with a fellow man. This devastated Oliver, who confided in his ex-boyfriend who remained to be his good friend Carter James. Carter readily listened to Oliver's situation but was aghast to find out that Ryan had gotten back together with his supposed ex-girlfriend Kelly, and mainly because Carter himself had been seeing the same girl. Determined to open Ryan's eyes to Kelly's blatant cheating, Oliver exposed her deeds. But Ryan was unbelieving of it until he saw Carter and Kelly kissing firsthand. Carter, Ryan, and Oliver confronted Kelly, embarrassing her in front of a large crowd for the cheating scandal. They left her weeping and having no face to show. And finally Ryan and Oliver got together. The end. Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing to become a part of our Rainbow Force and stay wholesome.